In the late Jurassic, a new predator appeared in the fossil record. It had a thick coat of armor composed of ganoid scales, a long toothy snout, and a body perfectly adapted for life in the river. Its descendants would outlast the end of the dinosaurs, the coming and going of the Ice Age, and the rise of humankind. What evolutionary changes and adaptations would this creature need to survive in our ever-changing planet, from the end of the Jurassic all the way to the Anthropocene? Surprisingly, almost none at all. Gars haven't changed much since they first evolved around 155 million years ago, so seeing one at an aquarium is the closest you'll probably get to experiencing Jurassic Park in real life. Today there are 7 species of gar, all living in North and Central America, and today on Pixel Aquarium, I'll be drawing all of them in pixel art. These are the long-nosed gar, the short-nosed gar, the Florida gar, the spotted gar, the Cuban gar, the tropical gar, and my personal favorite, the alligator gar. Well, let's get pixeling. First, we're starting with the alligator gar. My plan was originally just to do the heads of each of the gar species I was going to draw, so that's why some of them are just the heads. I felt that focusing on the head would be fine, because that's where a lot of the interspecies diversity is, but eventually I also wanted to do some full-body pieces. The alligator gar is of course my favorite species of gar. It's the largest of the gars and is about the size of an alligator, and once you see their similarly armored bodies and snouted forms, it's easy to see how the alligator gar gets its name. I use the alligator gar piece heavily also for the Cuban gar piece. Cuban gars are the southern and critically endangered cousin of the alligator gar. Next up, here's my first draft on the long-nosed gar. I eventually went back and made the long-nosed gar's nose longer, and made this one the short-nosed gar. I'm using my patented technique of stretching and squishing different features of the original fish piece to get another species. It saves time, and if the design of one fish isn't broken, why change it too much? They are closely related and very similar looking after all. For the tropical gar, I wanted to explore different color morphs of gar. Here I went with the platinum color morph, which is popular in the aquarium trade. Most wild tropical gars are much darker in coloration and very similar to their other gar relatives. But as gars look quite visually similar often, I wanted to differentiate mine, especially since pixel art makes expressing subtle differences in morphology quite difficult. Tropical gars are the southernmost reaching species of gar, with their range stretching deep into Central America. Alright, next up is the spotted gar. For the spotted gar, I decided I wanted to draw a full gar for at least one of the species, so I also wanted to show off this one's mini spots, so that's why I went with a full body for this one. I spent a while here trying to get the curve of the fish right, and then later I realized gars can't pose like this. They have very stiff spines, so oops, my bad. I should have known that going in and maybe done a little bit more research, but I still like how this turned out, so I kept it in. Finally, the Florida gar. The Florida gar is very similar to the spotted gar, and thus I decided to go with another color variant to distinguish them. This time I went with a xanthic coloration, which turns the fish bright orange. This one occurs in the wild, and I've seen several photos of wild gar which have this coloration. However, it does put them at an evolutionary disadvantage because it allows them to be easily spotted by both predators and prey. And with that, I completed every species of gar in pixel art. I have now completed 3 whole families of fish in pixel art, the other 2 being the ocean sunfish and the New Zealand torrent fish, though the latter family only has 1 species, so I don't know if that counts. Now on to something a little more serious. Today's gars are facing many threats. They are native to waters in the United States, but are often treated like invasive species, with no limits on their harvest. While most are not yet endangered, with the exception of the insular endemic, the Cuban Gar, they are well on their way to becoming another casualty of lax fishing laws. These fish have remained unchanged for over 100 million years, but in less than a century, we could wipe them out. It's ridiculous that this could happen, and we must do better to protect these wonderful creatures. Otherwise, an entire branch of the Tree of Life will be lost forever. Well, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this pixel art breakdown of gars, I hope you'll consider subscribing for more garish content.